that between March of 2020 and September 2022, 8 executives at the Public Health Agency of Canada who worked on the ArriveCan app were bonused $340,000, while taxpayers...
Correction.
That's not really a point. I'm sorry. Is this a point of order?
Well, point of order because the proper name of the app is ArriveCan.
It's not a point of order.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
A point of clarification, Chair?
Yes.
I would like to ask you, and perhaps the clerk as well, I understand that officials from PSPC and PHAC were originally invited and then unilaterally, by your choice, Chair, were removed from the witness list, even though the officials were ready and able to come today. So I would like to understand why, and then hopefully regain the floor so that we could discuss this matter.
Sure. So in light of the seriousness of the findings tabled by the Office of the Auditor General on Monday, that ArriveCan appears to have broken every rule in the book, and that the Auditor General called it the worst record-keeping she has witnessed. I acted on my own to hear directly from one department today, CBSA, along with the Auditor General's office, to get answers to our questions. And as you can see from the seats around this room, there's going to be no shortages of questions directed at both the OAG and CBSA. And I can assure members that we will hear from the other two departments in due course.
But now we're having to rearrange our own schedules to come in during a constituency week so that we can hear from these officials that were ready and prepared to come today, Chair.
Ms. Glid,
I really don't understand this, Chair, and I absolutely disagree with this.
Okay, and you're entitled to disagree.
A.G. Hogan, quick question. The procurement ombudsman in his report had commented about the bait and switch that was happening with procurement and seemed to insinuate it was quite widespread through the whole of government. Do you have a sense of how systemic this issue is? Obviously, CBSA, but do you have a sense how systemic it is otherwise?
So it's my understanding that the procurement ombuds report really looked at the front end of the processes more, whereas when we audit, we come in once the procurement is in place and we're looking at sort of validating that the resources are used. So I could tell you here that there are reasons why a resource in a task authorization or a contract may not work on a contract, but I would expect that the mechanisms that the government has are used to switch that up so that you don't to accept an invoice with a resource that you didn't already vet.
The documents we heard from both of you, missing documents, like who within CBSA was responsible for collecting and storing those documents? Like what documents, who was responsible for it?
I think where we saw missing elements, and I would encourage you perhaps to ask the president exactly who, but I would have expected that there would have been someone who would have planned a project oversight. And so that would have been perhaps the business owner, whoever was tasked with making sure that the application was developed and implemented. I would then expect someone in contracting to ensure that the file makes sense. Anyone who signs off on an invoice for making sure.
Quite widespread, though.
Well, I think that there are many individuals who play a critical role when it comes to making sure procurement and projects are well documented. Is it the same issue with you commented inaccurate financial records? Is it the same issue throughout the department? Like it's just not one position, but throughout this project or throughout the department? Well, again, I think it starts with the person who might accept an invoice with insufficient information and then certify and sign off that the government received what they should have received. Whoever does the coding, then who does the entry into the financial system. So again, I think you have the luxury of having the president of CBSA here, and some of these questions are well directed at her as to who would have been accountable and how many individuals would be involved in a process to treat an invoice.
Well, President O'Gorman, maybe you can answer that in writing because we're short of time, but maybe you can get back to the committee on that because I want to move on to another.
Could you just be clear on what the question is?
The question, what positions were responsible or should have been collecting and ensuring all the paperwork was there, but also as the AG comments, the inaccurate financial records. because I assume it's not just one person. Maybe we can get back to the committee of which departments, which projects, et cetera. Quick question
Just
for
one
you.
second. Is that possible for you to do that in writing after the?
I can answer it or come back in writing.
Yeah, in writing, please, just because it's shorter time.
Thank you.
I want to follow up just the two gentlemen, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano. They both received performance bonuses last year, did they not? And the year before, and the year before that?
I don't know.
They did. I'm telling you, I'm surprised that you would not know, considering the
I
gravity of
wasn't-
the situation.
I
I'm
wasn't
stunned. That's not part of the look. How did they receive bonuses if they are the subject of these accusations?
So I wasn't aware who received bonuses, but to your question, they would have been assessed at the time, at the end of the fiscal year. And
So-
to the extent that
So
there's
one moment they're
I'll just-
assessed well enough to receive bonus. The next moment they're history's greatest monsters in CBSA, according to some of these documents. It just seems quite strange.
But I can answer that question, Mr. Chair.
Just
if-
very briefly, please.
So there's mechanisms, if there's information that comes to light after performance ratings are done, to be able to reconsider those ratings.
Just a question for you. OGA first started, sorry, not we, but Operations Estimates first started this ArriveCan investigation October 2022. Why did it take all the way up to the Bottler allegations for CBSA to actually act and start looking more seriously at this rather lackadaisical effort?
So two things. One, when the study was started and we were bringing information together to respond to the committee, it was clear to me that the documentation was incomplete and inadequate. The study was started in October and the Bottler allegations came in November the following month.
Last one, I want to read to you a text. This is from Mr. Dewan, and this is before his appearance. My issue is what I want to say and what I can't say. Can I throw PHAC under the bus? Throw ministers under the bus? What do you think Mr. Dewan was referencing when he said he could not speak to these for fear of throwing PHAC or ministers under the bus?
I have no idea.
Have you looked into it?
This is the first I hear of that text.
Have you ever heard of any issues regarding Mr. Dewan and such issues in his prep for appearing before committee?
No.
How far back, I guess, does this mess with CBSA go with its purchasing and its IT issues? This is not something that started with ArriveCan. How long has it been going on, and how did no one catch it?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So as I said, when I started and there were questions regarding the documentation and the cost of ArriveCan, it became very clear to me that the documents were not complete and we had to try and piece together the information as the questions came in. I'm not sure how far back it goes. I've also launched an internal audit that will give me some further information, and certainly the procurement ombuds and the Auditor General have shed more light on the issue. But the systems and processes were not in place, and suggestion to me is that some of that does predate the pandemic.
Thank
and
you.
was maybe
That's the time, Mr.
exacerbated
McCauley.
by the pandemic.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. O'Gorman, although you have not been sworn or affirmed to tell the truth, there is a presumption that any witness who appears at committee will tell the truth. And I'll state at the outset that I have heard your evidence on multiple occasions, and you, ma'am, have a serious deficit when it comes to credibility and integrity.
Point of order. Chair.
Now, nothing he has said is out of bounds. You know I watch for language, and the member is pressing hard, as he has the right to do. You might not like it, but this is these serious allegations, and we're not hearing a lot of answers today from CBSA. It seems that no one was in charge. So, Mr. Brock, you have the floor. I stopped the clock. I'll resume it right now.
Ms. O'Gorman, in relation to a question put to you by my Liberal colleagues, you said, who picked GC Strategies is still an unknown entity for well over a year. It's just hanging in the air. I guess you forgot about ATIP request number A-2022-27196, which asked for summary request records from November 1st to November 16th of notes, emails, and texts sent or received by Aaron O'Gorman, Ted Gallivan, Jonathan Moore, and Kelly Belanger related to either the ArriveCan app or their November 14th, 2022 appearance at Government Operations Committee, including any discussions following the meeting. Based on that response, you as President and Vice Presidents Min Doan and Kelly Belanger approved a briefing preparatory package that provides, wait for it, a direct response to the question, who chose GC Strategies for ArriveCan? And lo and behold, on Annex A of the ATIP, as supplied by someone in your department, presumably you, who made the decision to contract GC Strategies? My office made the decision to pursue the contract with GC Strategies. The two proposals for the work were presented to the CIO and President, and the decision was made to proceed with GC Strategies as their proposal and approach aligned with what the CBSA was looking for, particularly rapid staff augmentation. The Deloitte proposal was a managed service using their cloud instance. This would have involved additional risk and did not align with our direction to build cloud mob competencies within the agency. Why are you lying to committee?
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Mr. Brock, you were very good there. You and others know I do not condone that language, nor do we condone that in the House. I would ask all members to direct tough questions at the witnesses and to use parliamentary language, even though that not every person at this table is a parliamentarian. Ms. Gorman, you have the floor, and I apologize for that. Over to you, please.
Thank you, because I would like to confirm the allegations are not against me. This is not the first time that I have been accused of that. I have told the truth, and I continue to tell the truth. And so I'm not sure what document you're referencing. I don't know that it was approved by me. And the reference to my office, I wasn't in the position when GC Strategies
Then it was your predecessor, the former president, Mr. John Osowski. You can't escape liability and responsibility, ma'am. This is a document that was supplied by the CBSA in relation to an ATIP. Did you or anyone in your office share the results with the Auditor General as to who picked GC Strategies?
So I would have to look at that document to understand what it is in reference to.
Perhaps you lost this document as well, just like the rest of the documents.
We released it under ATIP, and I don't know who the "my" is that you're referencing there. I
Okay, I'm
wasn't
gonna
at
move on, ma'am.
CBSA when the decision was taken about GC
I'm
Strategies.
going to move on
and
because
we-
the record is clear, the documentation is clear, so let's end this charade as to who picked GC Strategies. It was John Osowski in the role of the former president and Min Doan. It had nothing to do with Mr. McDonald or Mr. Utano. I know you'd like to blame them because they cast blame on you and were pointing fingers. But this net of suspicion
Point of
is
order.
much larger than the two individuals.
Mr. Brock, just 1 sec, please. Yes.
Yeah,
Ms.
Chair,
Shannon.
this is not a court of law. This is
not a
not, we are
point
not
of order.
investigating
Ms.
individuals.
Shannon, this is a
Interrupted.
parliamentary committee. Mr. Brock's questions are direct, but certainly within the bounds of acceptable questions. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Brock. I'm starting the clock again. You have about 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Your reports to the RCMP about potential criminality only relates to Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano. Is that correct?
That's not correct, and it is not correct
Who
to
else?
say.
Who else, ma'am?
Mr.
Who
Chair,
else?
may
This is
I
my
make-
time, Ms. O'Gorman. This is my time. Who else did you identify to the RCMP besides McDonald and Utano?
Chair, point of order. Does that not compromise RCMP investigations?
No, it does not.
I don't think Ms. O'Gorman is here to answer questions, and she will do so.
This is out of bounds.
It is not out of bounds. These are committee questions, and we have great latitude to ask questions on Parliament Hill, and witnesses will answer the questions to the best of their ability. Ms. O'Gorman, you have the floor, please.
Blame anything on me, and
You said you were lying, ma'am.
he did
That
not
committee.
say that.
Yes, he
That
did.
is not true.
He did.
The question was put to him whether a series of individuals he felt were being honest. And to my name, he said, I wouldn't think so. I don't know what he was referring to. He provided no more information.
So now can you answer my question?
He did not say that.
Who else did you identify?
So I did not identify
Ma'am?
anybody to the RCMP. The CBSA received allegations from Bottler that were serious enough
You told
for
me earlier at committee
to
that
launch.
you referred the matter to the RCMP.
I'm answering the question.
You
I'm
told
answering
me
your
earlier
question.
at committee, man, this is my time. You told committee earlier that you referred the matter to the RCMP. Did you simply furnish the Bottler allegation to the RCMP, or did you ask the RCMP to investigate Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano
Thank you,
at the
Mr. Brock.
exclusion of anybody
We will hear
else?
from Mrs. O'Gorman, please. You have the floor for a brief answer.
So I launched an internal investigation, and the investigators provided that information to the RCMP.
Paragraph 1.56 of the report says, we found that GC Strategies was involved in the development of the requirements that the Canada Border Services Agency ultimately included in the request for proposal. So that means that GC Strategies sat down with people in the government, worked out aspects of the nature of the requirements which GC Strategies bid on and then got. That means the process was rigged. So, Ms. O'Gorman, can you tell us why the process was rigged in favor of GC Strategies?
So I wasn't there at the time. I think what you set out is what the evidence is demonstrating. And in terms of the motivation, I don't have enough information to speak to that.
Okay, so you agree the process was rigged, but you don't know why it was rigged. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm telling you that the collaboration that you're referring to appears to have taken place and is absolutely inappropriate.
Would you describe that as rigging the process, though? I mean, it pretty clearly is, but I just want to hear it from you. Would you describe that as rigging the process?
So the fact that there was one bidder and that bidder collaborated, I would agree that the odds were stacked in their favor. That being said, I don't have any information as to the motivation for that. So I can't speak to it, and I wasn't at the agency when that happened.
When did you first find out about that?
I believe it was in the information that was part of the investigation, but I can't tell you exactly when I found out about that.
We'll circle back to that. Paragraph 1.42 highlights inappropriate invitations and gifts from vendors. Did you ever receive or were you offered invitations or gifts from ArriveCan vendors?
No,
Was the former president?
I don't know.
Did you ask anyone if the former president had?
No,
Okay, did Mr. Doan?
I don't know. I'm letting the
Did you ask?
investigation that's underway take its course. I am
Okay, so
not stepping in front of it, and I'm not carrying out my own investigation. I'm relying on my security team and investigators to follow up on these issues.
So I want to follow up on the issue of the internal investigation report, and I think I know what is happening on the government end, in that the government has tried to invest a lot of focus on this internal investigation. But the internal investigation is not an independent process. We had the independent investigator here who confirmed as much. He confirmed that his role involves reporting to, being subject to, in a general sense for his employment, people who may themselves be the subject of suspicion. We've talked about rigged processes, and we've got a situation where the investigation into the rigged process also looks rigged, insofar as the investigator is not independent and is subject, in their position, to decisions of their superiors within the department. So how can Canadians have any faith in a rigged investigation into a rigged process, and why not have an external, truly independent investigator?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware that I am under investigation. The investigation is being carried out under my authority as a deputy head. And in order to carry out my authorities, I need an investigative arm. All large departments have an investigative team.
If in the process of these inquiries, you or your predecessor or others in senior positions around you were to be subject to suspicion, and we know there's suspicion insofar as people have come before this committee and said that you've been dishonest to this committee, surely an investigator who is subject to your authority would be constrained in fully pursuing those allegations. Wouldn't you agree?
Mr. Chair, it's unclear why this is being made about me. I am not my predecessor. I am in this job now.
Well,
I was not
Mr.
here when
McDonald
that
told this
happened,
committee that you
and
were
it's
not
not-
being honest and
it's-
forthright.
that's not-
So you might disagree with
point of
that,
order,
but that is an
Chair.
allegation against
point
you.
of
and it's
order.
serious.
Just one second, Mr. Genuous.
Mr. Genuous forgets where he is.
No, I don't think he does.
I think you forget where we are.
Government operations or something
Yes.
else.
If you could be specific about committees, I believe those testimony was made in Ogo. You have about 10 seconds for a brief question, and then we'll hear an answer from Ms. O'Gorman.
The report identifies that there were
10 seconds.
10,000 Canadians falsely, inappropriately sent into quarantine by one out of the 177 versions of the app. What is the total number of people who were sent into quarantine by this app who shouldn't have been?
Thank you.
10,200 were given a false notification that they should have been quarantined when they weren't actually.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Brock, you now have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Back to you again, Ms. O'Gorman. You are aware that the agency is under investigation by the Information Commissioner currently? Is that a yes?
I don't know what you're referring to.
You would have received notification from the Information Commissioner that your agency is under investigation because of delayed requests in terms of complying with ATIP requests from Mr. McDonald. You acknowledge that now?
I didn't know that it related. I wasn't aware of that, no.
Yes. That your agency is delaying the release and has delayed the release for several months without proper explanation, and that's why the the Information Commissioner is investigating you. Now, going back to another issue, pursuant to an order paper question brought in the House by a colleague of mine, that between March of 2020 and September 2022, 8 executives at the Public Health Agency of Canada who worked on the ArriveCan app were bonused $340,000, while taxpayers.
Correction?
That's not really a point. I'm sorry. Is this a point of order?
Well, point of order, because the proper name of the app is ArriveCan.
It's not a point of order. Nice try.
No. Let's stay. Look, folks. Let's stay on track. It is my intention to get through another round. We'll go over a few minutes. But I'd like to stay on track to give members another full round. Mr. Brock, you have the floor. You have 4 minutes left, please.
8 executives at Public Health Agency received commissions of $340,000 with this app that has cost taxpayers in excess of $60 million. Your agency did not release any details to that order paper question as to how much bonuses were paid out to your executives. Do you have an answer as to why you didn't respond or which executives at the CBSA were bonused?
So the information in terms of bonuses and performance pay are posted on the website, and I will not give specific individuals remuneration information.
Why?
It's covered by the Privacy Act. That's their personal information.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Nader.
As the grand inquest of the nation, this committee is entitled to information to call for papers and documents, and Ms. O'Gorman is incumbent upon the penalty of contempt of Parliament to respond to the questions of this committee.
That actually is a valid point of order. So, yes, Ms. O'Gorman, I will just remind you that, in fact, the Parliament supersedes its request any privacy laws that you might feel you're subject to. If papers are asked or if information is requested, you should be aware of Parliament's right to ask for, request, and receive such documents. I'll turn things. You got 3 minutes. Three minutes left.
So, Ms. O'Gorman, your agency, which is at the center of this scandal, which in my opinion has brought the entire public service under disrepute, how many executives and how much money were bonused during the rollout of this particular app?
I don't have that information with me.
But you'll provide that to us?
I take note of the request.
And the answer is probably yes, that some executives were bonused, received commission for their work?
So the number of people that received bonuses at CBSA during the pandemic is on that information.
So the answer is yes.
Online.
Executives receive bonuses, and you'll tell us exactly who and by how much.
I take note of the question.
Okay, thank you. Now, to Mr. Hanoush and Ms. Dupre, I understand that you interviewed Cameron McDonald as well as Antonio Utano, and they furnished you with the details regarding that ATIP. And to answer the question of Ms. Hogan as to who that person was who made that request, you knew, as supplied by Mr. Utano and Mr. McDonald, that that person was Mindone. Did you share the details of the identity of that person to Ms. Hogan?
So yes, we did meet with Mr. McDonald, and we did take in consideration the materials that were provided to us as part of that conversation. And subsequently, as Ms. Hogan has indicated, we did discuss that specific document that you referenced earlier in the meeting.
Right. Did you specifically inform Ms. Hogan that the person who is identified as I take responsibility or my office was Mindone? Yes or no, sir?
So Sammy and I talked about this, and we wondered whether it was Ms. Belanger or whether it was Mr. Dewan, and it was unclear.
Did you seek clarification from the CBSA?
I'll have to ask Sammy if he sought clarity. I don't.
We did not, no.
Thank you. Cede to Mr. McCauley.
You got 50 seconds.
Just very quickly, I want to read a line from the Information Commissioner regarding the ATIP. It says, CBSA improperly responded that it did not have records responsive to the above noted access request. Now, you're aware of the concerns expressed that Mr. Dewan has deleted emails. I'm just curious, how does your department respond with all this going on, deleted emails and investigation, and your department improperly responded that it did not have records responsive to an ATIP, specifically on ArriveCan? So
I'm not aware of who makes the ATIP requests, so if I look confused, it's
but your
because
department improperly...
Mr. McCauley, you have the floor, please.
So I will look into that investigation. I don't have any information on it now. We take our ATIP responsibilities extremely seriously. We have a very high volume. I will look into that, into those concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to our witnesses for being here today. I'm first going to go back to the report to section 1.41. Auditor General, in this section it says, we've reviewed available records and could not determine which agency official made the final decision to select GC strategies. However, as my colleagues indicated here today, there is documentation that was provided that showed that the previous CBSA head, in coordination with the CIO, did come to this decision. I'm wondering why you did not come to this decision, given this piece of documentation, and why you think this is, if you believe that this piece of documentation was not provided for you, if you were not able to discern who came to this final decision based upon this piece of documentation. Why were you not able to determine who made the final decision to select GC strategies, given this documentation my team has presented here today?
So the source of the documentation is one of our concerns. It wasn't maintained in official corporate records, and I would expect that it would be there. It is very unclear who the individual is speaking to, and I've heard no testimony. It appears to be a briefing note for a committee appearance, and I've heard no testimony around it. It remains that the decision on who who decided to award a certain contract needs to be properly documented. And what we do have on file is that a contract requisition was signed by the executive director. And exercising delegated authority in the public service comes with responsibility and accountability.
Who? Ms. O'Gorman, we've also discussed today about the missing documentation of Mr. Min Doan. Now, the Auditor General, in her testimony yesterday, said that she can't determine. It could have either been deleted or destroyed. Again, for this committee and for Canadians, can you please verify the information that you have relative to this documentation of the former CIO specifically, please?
So we have received allegations that emails were deleted. Those allegations were provided to our Director of Security, and there is an investigation into those allegations.
And you can't provide anything further at this time other than these allegations?
That they're being investigated.
They're being investigated. And who are they being investigated by, please?
By members of our security team under the direction of Monsieur Lafleur.
Okay, and will you be receiving any update on these investigations prior to the final release of the report?
I don't know. If there's material information that I should be made aware of, I'm confident that they will provide it to me as they have in other investigations.
And when is this report expected to be finished?
Well, as I said, if there is information, I'm confident they'll give it to me. I don't know when, and I don't know if there will be information before the final report. It's underway. I don't always receive information before a final report. Sometimes I do. Not always the case.
Sometimes, apparently, you don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. O'Gorman, again, this committee, this Parliament right now, Canadians are absolutely seized with this ArriveCan app, the Arrive Scam app, because we have a minimum of $60 million, which has been spent, but as a result of incomplete documentation, it could be more than $60 million. 18% of invoices submitted by contractors which did not have supporting documentation, $12.2 million, which could be unrelated to ArriveCan, as uncovered by the Auditor General who is here today. You yourself in this meeting alone were unaware of contempt of the information officer. You were unaware of bonuses awarded to 2 employees who have now been suspended, the most grave action in the public service. You didn't inform the AG of the RCMP investigation. You didn't inform Government Operations Committee in November of 2022 of the RCMP investigation of GC strategies. CBSA has 14,000 employees. Do you believe that you still have their confidence today, before us here today?
Once again, Chair, I'm not sure why the need to impugn my integrity. I will correct.
Do you think they have your confidence?
I'm going to correct something that was said.
I'm asking you, do you think that they have you have the confidence of them here today?
Mr. Chair, may I correct one of the statements?
Your time
and
is
I'll end
almost
with,
up.
do you believe you still have the confidence of the minister and of this government? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
You have the floor, Ms. O'Gorman.
So it's false to say that I didn't inform the Government Operations Committee of the RCMP investigation. When I appeared, nothing had been referred to the RCMP.
Ms. Kuzi.
That's not correct. I appeared on November 14th, and the referral to the RCMP was formally done in January, was informally done in December and late November. I wasn't aware that we hadn't referred anything to the RCMP when I appeared, so that's not correct to say that. And I know the committee had tried to hold me in contempt for that. It's incorrect that I did not give the committee relevant information. Nothing had been referred to anybody at that point.